Scope. What scope basically is the availability of code inside of our program. Let's say this attribute scope is available from the main method, and also it's available inside the class calc. If we change this from public scope, which is available inside and outside of the class, let's say we change it to private, it will only be available on the calc class and not in the main method or the main class. If you remember, the main is the first thing that runs, and from there the program goes wherever you tell it to go, and it's inside actually a main class, or this could be any name, it doesn't have to be main, but the method has to be a static method called main that returns nothing, void. Okay, let's do a demonstration. Let's create a private int, and we will call it a count plus. It will count the times we used the plus method. And let's give it a default value of 0, because we want it to start from 0. So now when we create an instance of calc, it will also have an attribute of count plus, and we cannot use count plus outside of the calc class, but we can use it inside. So before we return z, we will do count plus and plus plus to increment it. If we did try to use it here, let's say c dot count plus, you will see we will have an error, which is the field calc dot count plus is not visible. Visible, available, same thing. It's not visible to the compiler of Java. It cannot use it here. It is aware of it, but it has rules that doesn't allow it to use private attributes outside of the class. We can also have a private method. Let's have it return nothing, void, and call it I'm private. Let's say I'm P for short. The only thing it will do is use s.o. As you can see, it also added it can use it because it's in the same directory, the S class. Let's have it say I'm private. Okay, so this method can only be used, let's say use it here, inside of the calc class, and only inside of the calc class, not in any other class, because it's private. And you don't need to declare anything, you can just call it like this. You don't need to write c dot whatever, because it also refers to the instance of calc when you use this method. So you don't have to write something like c.imp, like we do here when we call different methods. let's run it, and you will see it will say I'm calc, I'm private method, before it will output anything else, because we told it to output it here before it returns the string. If you remember, we did that in the last lesson. So to output count plus to see how many times count was used, we will have to pass it using some kind of a public class. So you know what, here we use it here, so let's output it here. Inside the plus class. Let's pass it as a string, count. Let's remove this. And let's increment it using a plus sign. So now it will output the times plus 1, it will be 1. Yeah. Let's use the plus method a few times. Now it will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because plus s uses the plus method too. Here will be 6. Or 5, because it starts at 0. As you can see, it outputs it every time we use the plus method. It will output the private variable. That is one of the ways, maybe one of the only ways you can access a private attribute, and you can also access private methods within other methods in the class. There is also another type of scope which is called protected. And protected is the same as private, exactly the same. The only difference is that you can access a protected attribute or method within child classes which inherit from this class. Let's say we have a class that inherits from a calc, some other class. It will have access to blah also, so blah can be used in the scope of calc and its children. We haven't covered inheritance yet. We will do it in the next lesson, but when you use inheritance and you want to pass attributes or methods to the children of the class too, you use the protected scope. Now there's another thing. If we create an int, let's say call it x equals, let's say 9, what is the scope of this variable? The scope is that it's only available in the main method. That's it. And let's copy this x and let's put it here. So now this is a different x. It's only available in the scope of this method. You cannot access it from here. You cannot access it from the main. You can only refer to this x and use it inside this method. That's how the Java compiler actually works. Also, don't do that. Don't create two variables with the same name. If I would have to do that, I would call it x2 at least, so I won't get mixed up, or anyone that's using this code will get mixed up, or maybe the compiler will have some very strange bug, which happened to me only once in in 10 years and I don't want it to happen again. So I never use two different variables or class names or any names in programming that are exactly the same for two different uses. This x is not the same as this x. They are also assigned different positions in the memory, in the actual physical memory. So they are not connected at all. They have different availabilities, different visibilities, different scope, as they call it. So to recap, when you use a private attribute, it's only visible and usable inside the class it's assigned to, meaning it can be used here, where you declare the attributes, or inside the method, and that's it. The same goes for private methods. Protected methods and attributes are accessible within the parent class and its children. A variable you create within a method without any scope inside of a class is only available within that method. You can't pass it to another method, another class, another attribute. But this one, as it is now, the position of x is only available to this method. Same with this x. It's only available within the main method. And that's it for this lesson. If you don't understand it, rewatch it. And if you still don't understand it, you can contact me via the Q&A. And that's it.